Good afternoon, and welcome to this session. We're so glad that you have joined us for today's great and compelling presentation from Dr. Angela Christie. Before we introduce her, I'm Jana Weiss. I am a senior associate or fellow at CPE, and I lead the Kentucky Graduate Profile Academy. I'm a longtime professor at Eastern Kentucky University and was the provost there for 8 years. If you heard Dr. Tia McNabb yesterday, super presentation regarding how to transform an institution or institutions, you heard a number of similarities of what she suggested with the Kentucky Graduate Profile and the 10 Essential Skills. And today's session will dive deeply into that process of helping transform an academic and a whole institution where students move from the classroom to the careers. Now to introduce Dr. Angela Christie. She is English professor at Georgia State University, the director of their amazing SAC-COC QEP called Classroom to Career. And now she's a member of the National Institute for Student Success, led directly by Dr. Tim Rennick, who also has been to Kentucky a couple of times to speak to us. I first met Dr. Christie when Ralph Wolf, who was the president at the time of QA Commons, Quality Assurance Commons, and I interviewed her about 2019 to say what's going on at Georgia State. And when we heard her presentation, I'll never forget what he said. He looked at me and he said, "We have seen the future and it's at Georgia State." And I agreed with him wholeheartedly. So we're kind of bringing the future, not just the past of what they've done, but what the future, hopefully, that we can do more of as we implement our quality framework for CPE in Kentucky, the graduate profile. So Angela came to Kentucky, I think it was a COVID at that time, so she came virtually and spoke to the CAOs to help them understand what it means when faculty collaborate and are intentional about bringing workforce skills into the classroom and how that can actually change the culture and the transformation of an academic area. So she's here today, and she's going to talk about that intentionality. And I hope you have pen in hand because I learn something new every time I hear from her. But Angela, would you come to speak with us today and tell us what classroom to career means at Georgia State?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And this will be the fourth time, I think, that Jana has introduced me to a group of academics. And every time my introduction gets longer and even more full of great adjectives about my work. So I'm humbled. I feel very honored to be speaking with all of you. And today I am going to talk about career readiness in the academic space. For quite some time, we have separated those two things. We've taken the academic space and really focused on how faculty can prepare students to graduate with the academic rigor and a degree in a particular major that will help them or aid them in their search for a career. And then most of us have a career space on campus. So when students need to know about career or want to investigate further how to best put themselves in line to get a good career, faculty say, go over there, go find out about that stuff over there. And what we have found from the data, which I'll share in a minute, is that students are not following our sort of advice. They're not going to the career center. They're not finding out about career in that space alone. And that we have not done a good job of meeting students where they are. So one of the bits of data that I find to be really interesting, and this the data is spanning from 2018 to the present, is that 66% of students felt that they were not well prepared to succeed in a job search. So we have students graduating, getting a degree, accumulating a great deal of debt, and then 66% of them look back on their time with the university and say, I'm not well prepared for a job search. The one thing that they should know how to do when they get out, they're reporting to us that they don't feel prepared for that prospect. And 75% said they didn't know which positions were an appropriate fit. Most of them know that each major sort of kind of has that bellwether career connected to it. You'll hear me use the English degree a lot as an example. Number one, because I think it is a good example of how you can really beef up a career in a arts and humanities area. But also it's where I come from, and so I know a lot about how the students feel there and how the faculty feel there. But 75% didn't even know what positions were good positions for them. If you're an English major, then oftentimes it's to be a teacher. But obviously there are many, many other industries that the English major can compete in. And 71% had visited their university's career services center 2 times or fewer in their college career. And so the one place that we're asking them to go to get this information and to become more prepared, to become polished at the art of interviewing and creating resumes and giving pitches about how stellar they are in these industry spaces. We have 71% of them only going there 2 times or fewer during their entire career. 72% of students say higher education has appreciably improved their ability to secure a job. So those are some good positive feelings they have. They know that having a college degree is better than not having a college degree when it comes to securing a job. And 85% of seniors say college significantly helped them understand their career goals. They understand that the degree that they have is a degree that unlocks many doors for them. But 60% of students say they feel pessimistic about finding meaningful employment after graduation. So while we have these really high levels of positive thinking, this degree has made me appreciate what those goals are, and they've helped to help me understand how to secure a job. We have a high number of students feeling at graduation very pessimistic about their ability to actually secure that job. When we look on the employer side, and this is a NACE, a bit of data from NACE's 2025 Job Outlook report, we have 65% of employers using skills-based hiring practice, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means and how that's different and how that has shifted. And 75% of employers hire majors that are not exclusive to their industry. 88% of employers value problem-solving skills above all other attributes. And so these are things that we know that our employers are looking for. They're looking for students who can show skills-based learning. And it doesn't really matter. Up to 3/4 of employers say it doesn't really matter what degree you have. If you can show me that you have the skills that are linked to this particular industry, you could have any degree that is offered to you at your school. I think that this is very powerful. It means that we can start breaking those traditional and stereotypical ideas about what one degree can do for a student. And it allows us to start talking to students about majoring in things that they're passionate about, majoring in areas that are really curious to them or that make them curious, instead of majoring in that one degree area that they think is something that will get them a good job, a good paying job. When we look at the employer side of it as well, we have some hiring gains going on from the 2022 cycle all the way through to the current cycle right now. But despite those gains, employers have a less positive view of the job market. And if you excuse my look for a second, I went ahead and broke these things down so I could give you a quick snapshot. From 2021 to 2022, we had 95.1% of employers ranking their view of the employees coming, the candidates coming to them as excellent to good. That's 95.1%. If we move all the way to the 2024-2025 cycle, that has decreased to 60%. So over the course, and this is obviously post-pandemic, but we're getting out of the pandemic, and we see year over year that our employers have a less positive view of the graduates who are coming to them from their undergraduate studies. This is a 2018 Strata Gallup poll. This is something that really informed the way that we were looking at our QEP college to career. We found these to be very interesting data points. When we have here 78% of students either rarely or never going to the career services office, then that says a lot about what we could claim as far as our students being prepared for a job search. At Georgia State specifically, that number is even higher. So this is a national poll. Georgia State's poll was closer to 86% of students either found that they rarely or never visited the Career Services Center. Meant that our high Pell, high first generation college going students were not availing themselves of the career advice from the professionals who were hired to give it to them. These students obviously are coming from families who have not attended college before or have low attendance in college. And so the familial advice that they're getting is not the same advice that students who were coming from more well-resourced families were getting, and yet they were still not going to the Career Services Center. In fact, at Georgia State University, one of the things that our leadership thought, might be helpful is to move career services from a sort of basement-y office below the cafeteria. It was like in a winding, tunnel-y area. It took forever to figure out how to get to career services. I'm not even sure there were any windows down there. So it took moving it to a central place on campus where students walk by it all the time. We thought that actually moving it to a more centralized space would increase the number of visits. And while it has increased somewhat, I'm not sure that it has to do with its location as much as really embedding experiences in the curriculum that point students towards that career center. In this graph that you'll see to the right, how often did you receive career advice from other faculty or staff members? So before we had 78 had rarely or never, but we see here that we have more students who are comfortable or seeking career advice from faculty. Now, why is that important? Faculty are professionals. Clearly, they are there to help students. But when we look at what it is that faculty know about and what they're good at talking about, career isn't one of them. And I say that as a person from the faculty side. Most faculty have spent their entire career moving towards the job they have right now. And if your campus is anything like most campuses across the country, when you get that tenure track job, you stay in that tenure track job. You're not looking to upskill. You're not looking to move out of that job. And so we have students going to their faculty members asking about how to translate skills, how to find relevant and meaningful job opportunities outside industry, and all of these good questions that students should be asking to the very people who have very little experience in doing those things. We even spoke to many of our faculty on campus and tried to ask them, hey, where do your students get jobs? What job opportunities are available to your students by major? And they came back over and over again with those stereotypical, my major is great because it allows someone to be a history teacher at a high school. They can be a docent at a museum right? But without any sort of indication that the skills that someone might be learning as a history major also apply to many different industries that are outside of that stereotypical view. When we move on with the career advice helpfulness survey, we have 65% of students say that the career services advice that they were given was helpful or somewhat helpful. And that's in comparison to the 81% of students who felt like the advice that they got from faculty was helpful. So what we have here is we have a group of professionals on all of our campuses who are trained, who have connections to employers in the area, who have understanding of the employment market, both regionally as well as nationally, who have access to data about skills acquisition, even have access to something like Handshake and how to get students meaningful internship opportunities. And then we have a large percentage of our students who are forgoing those conversations in that space and moving more towards the faculty to get this career advice. And while a high percentage of students feel their college education improved their chances, more than half of them feel pessimistic about getting a job. We just went over how a majority of students go to faculty for career advice instead of going to the professionals who are hired to do those things, and that employers are focusing on skills-based hiring instead of major-based hiring, and that a vast majority of employers hire candidates with demonstrable problem-solving and critical thinking skills. So these are all really great pieces of data to consider when thinking about how to move career services into the classroom. Not just how to do it, but how to argue with upper administration and leadership that that is a move that we would need to make. It is going to take some buy-in. Certainly career services is going to say, wait a minute, that space is not my space. Faculty are definitely going to say, I don't want this career stuff in my classroom. I teach 18th century sentimental poetry, and I am not interested in talking about resumes in my classroom. And so there are some things that we have come up with at Georgia State that have made that move to the classroom space a little simpler and a little easier for faculty and career services staff to buy into. So at Georgia State, we started with 3 very simple objectives for our college to career program. Awareness, connection, and demonstration. We want all of our students to be aware of the competencies that make them strong candidates out on the job market, but also in that connection piece, we want them to be able to connect the skills in each of those competencies with the work they do in every class. So when I've visited many campuses to talk about career building, one of the I won't say it's a mistake, but one of the things that I see a lot of universities doing is that they are attaching specific skills to specific majors. So it's this major here where you're going to learn a lot about data analysis. And while it may be true that data analysis is more prominent in some majors than others, it's certainly not true that you don't do data analysis in every single class you take. It just takes a little bit more to think about how every assignment could be connected to something like data analysis, and then to show students that that is what they are doing. And so that's what the connection work is meant to do. And then demonstration. We really needed to find a way to allow students to demonstrate those skills. Students will go out all the time to job interviews and they'll say, yes, I am a good leader. And then someone will respond, the interviewee will respond, well, give me an example of what makes you a good leader. And they're stymied by such a simple question. What sort of example can they give? And it's not just leadership. Leadership might be the easiest one for them to think of, but critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, their ability to develop ethical reasoning. You know, these types of things, they have no idea how to show someone, how to demonstrate in an interview or in a resume or on a portfolio that they send out to prospective employers that they have these skills. So it was really important for us to figure out a way that our students across the board, every single one of them, would have a way to demonstrate they had these skills. Now, as I go forward, I will say that this is an area that we didn't do so well in. We started with a program that we thought was going to be amazing. It turned out to be a bit of a flop, and we had to readjust, and we are moving forward with something that is much more dynamic and useful for our students. So career services in the classroom has 4 major components at Georgia State. Certainly there's many more that could be added and many more that should be added, but this is what we have landed on as we're moving out of our QEP work and into the sort of making career services in the classroom a sort of standard at Georgia State University. The first one is career readiness curriculum. So building curriculum that is readily adaptable for any classroom, and then encouraging faculty to use it. Major specific career explorer data, giving students and faculty real-time data about where our students at Georgia State are employed and what skills they used in order to get that employment, and then connecting it back to the major from which they graduated. Our skills briefcase, which is how we're allowing our students to demonstrate their skills. And I'll talk a little bit about how we built that. And then, of course, faculty fellowships and departmental grants. So we'll start with career readiness curriculum. This is all integrated curriculum aligned with the 3 learning outcomes. So we have curriculum that are awareness based. We have curricula that are connection-based, and we have curricula that are demonstration-based. We do assess this annually for the QEP. That's how we got our data to write and submit the final reporting for our QEP, which I submitted about a month ago. So we are done. But we did assess this annually, but I'll talk a little bit about how we created this curriculum so that the assessment mechanism is continual. And so now the provost office can pool assessment, chairs can pool assessment without having to tax faculty too much. We did develop this curriculum in our learning management system. We do use Blackboard, iCollege. It's an instance of Blackboard called iCollege. It's not the most dynamic of learning management systems. Some of you are probably using things that are much easier to manipulate, so kudos for you. But we are using our learning management system to do most of our assessment and curriculum building. And then we created faculty training through online modules. Our career readiness modules are in our orientation course. So Georgia State University has what we call GSU 1010. This is an orientation course to the college experience. All students are pre-registered for this course. We have an 85% completion rate for this course. It is a 1 credit hour course, but it is not grade bearing. So it's pretty much a pass or fail course, but it doesn't matriculate into the GPA. Students who are savvy enough can figure out how not to take the course, but most of them do at that between 85 and 88% complete the course. So we have developed learning modules that go directly into the course shell there and do all of our awareness work. I'll show some examples of what that looks like. We also have connection modules that we have pre-populated into the standard shells for our English 1101 and 1102 courses. And we have demonstration shells that go into our demonstration modules that go into the shells for any course that is what we call a signature experience course. So these are high impact practices courses that students usually take in the junior and senior level. So in GSU 1010, that first year orientation course, there is a set of college to career modules in this course. The modules take up about 3 weeks of the course, but they are not a continuous 3 weeks. They are sort of, there's a week of college to career material at the beginning, and then a week in the middle, and then another week, maybe a couple weeks after that mid point. And the modules introduce all the competencies and the connected skills. There are quizzes and short answer responses to questions about skills development. And then there are assignments that direct students to career services in order to complete them. Now, the completion part of these assignments has to do with building a resume, uploading that resume into Handshake, opening an account on Handshake, those types of things. So in this early level awareness section, what we're looking at as far as data is completion data. How many students have opened up an account in Handshake? How many students have uploaded a resume? How many students have connected networks in Handshake that connect them to areas of interest as far as internships go for later on? Those are all bits of data we can get in the back end, and we don't ask faculty or need to ask faculty to tally that or to send us any of that information. The quizzes and short answer responses are also graded through the LMS, and they are graded by the LMS. We have set responses already put in there. So when students complete those quizzes, we are able to get the answers on the back end. And so faculty do not have to do the grading for that either. Now, the type of things that faculty are doing, obviously, they are workshopping those resumes. They are talking a little bit about what those skills mean and how they translate across academic courses and things like that. We also have a personality and major discovery section in this module that helps them sort of kind of think through what areas, what majors would be a best fit for them. A lot of our students come to Georgia State without any idea, or they all want to be what they call an entrepreneurial because they think that people who own businesses make a lot of money and can set their own schedule. They have very little recognition that owning their own business is a great deal of work and often entails a lot of financial hardship. And so once we get them past that sort of idea, obviously they all want to be doctors and lawyers and such. But once we get them past thinking very reductively and focusing on what their skills say that they would be good at, then we help them in this 1010 course sort of explore possible majors that would allow them to develop the skills for that industry. One of the things that we built was a platform called the Career Explorer, which I will show in just a little bit. The Career Explorer has real-time data about where our Georgia State students are. So if a student is interested in becoming an English major, then they might go to the English major page and they will see areas where our English majors are working, how much money and average salary is for English majors from Georgia State University, the types of job titles that they have, which are interestingly almost every single time not teacher, but many other different job titles. And so this is an opportunity for in the classroom for them to explore different majors and see what sort of industries are connected to it. We use a third-party platform called Stepping Blocks, and all of our students do have access to Stepping Blocks, but we're using embed codes from Stepping Blocks to populate our Career Explorer page so that students can get that real-time data connected to their major or the major that they're interested in. We also have them starting when they move into the connection phase of our curriculum, building out LinkedIn pages. When we started the QEP, we used a third-party platform called Portfolium. And we thought that it was really great because it looks a lot like Facebook. It had a very neat social aspect to it. People could like and post and repost and all of this stuff. And we just thought, wow, won't students absolutely be giddy to use this platform? If we had done any research on who was actually on Facebook anymore at the time and found out that it was mainly their parents and grandparents who were on Facebook, we would have probably seen that or anticipated that students didn't really like that type of interface. We had a difficult time getting them bought into Portfolium, and the faculty didn't really like forcing their students to use it either. So we took a breath, we paused, and we said, you know what? You know where employers are, you know where students could talk about their skills and create networks. This already existing free platform called LinkedIn. And so why don't we create a module that introduces them to LinkedIn and connect it in our 1101 and 1102 courses. One of the things we did was we went to those folks in 1101 and 1102 and said, do you have a personal narrative essay assignment? And they did. And we asked them, well, you know, would it be difficult to change this to a personal narrative about career? And if so, if you could do that, then we could kill two birds with one stone here. You could get something that you could grade as a personal narrative, but that could also be something that they upload to LinkedIn as their personal bio. And since it is something that is graded in this class for a grade, we know that those personal bios have every opportunity to be compelling, to be grammatically correct, and to tell a good story about the student. We also direct at this time our students to go back to the Career Services Center to sit for a headshot. We have a career closet there where students can either borrow or actually take donated jackets and dress shirts so that they can take those headshots. But also, if they're ready for an interview, they can take those shirts and jackets to go on their first interviews. Students do create their first resumes in this early first semester of college. It is a very intricate module here. It lets them know that we're not expecting them to have really anything that will be there when they get to be a junior or senior, that this is sort of a living document. It's something that they have to go back to over and over again. It's something that they have to update after every semester. It's a great time for them to have conversations in this 1010 class and in the 1101 class about how to translate even the most minor of experiences into a career experience. I mean, who are we kidding? You know, freshman students do not have a lot of career experience to put on a resume. And so it kind of seems like a fool's errand to have them create one at this point. But what we find is that students are really compelled by the idea that they could learn different techniques to turn something in that they do that they think is not really career related into a compelling story about skills development. So they work at their aunt's office answering phones, you know, 2 days a week. That's not something that would be compelling on a resume when you're graduating from college, but it is something that they could start with to talk about how meaningful it is to develop these customer service soft skills. And so this is a really great moment in class to sort of kind of talk about this. Our faculty report who teach this class that students really get into it. They bring a job or a volunteer experience that they've had in high school or their first semester in college. And all of the other students say, oh my gosh, you could call it this. These are the skills. Look, we have a list of skills here. You could, you know, definitely connect these skills to that type of experience. And they get very excited about it. We do have them upload their initial resume to Handshake. They're not getting a lot of bites off of it. You know, the employers in Handshake aren't like, oh my gosh, this freshman is ready to go. But it gets them in the habit of updating and re-uploading that resume so that when they are ready for finding internships or meaningful employment on campus, they know how to do it. They know where to look, and they know how to beef up their resume. And like I said before, these modules come with quizzes and with short answer questions, also with tracking engagement. And all of that data is pooled in a report at the back end of our LMS. And so faculty don't have to worry about grading this material. Don't have to worry about really diving into or making sure that they're providing a specific type of feedback here. We're just getting this data so that we can see where our students are and how our students are engaging in the career curriculum that we've developed for them. So the next area is the major specific Career Explorer data. And this is the platform that we created through the data we've been collecting and that we have access to in 3 different areas. Obviously, we have the third-party platform that I mentioned before, which is Stepping Blocks. It pools aggregate data. We don't have individual student data, but aggregate data about our students. There's quite a bit of students in there. And so we're able to get a lot of information about where our students are and also their career path. Where did they go after graduation? Where did they go after that? You know, how much money are they making now? What industry have they settled in, and how long have they been in that industry? But we also have the Department of Labor statistics for the Georgia Department of Labor, which we do look and sort of cross-reference. We are meticulous in figuring out, making sure that what is listed in Stepping Blocks is not aberrant in any way. And we've done some other things with the Stepping Blocks material to make sure that we are presenting it so that it is fairly representative of all of our majors. And then we have a couple other government data platforms that we use just to triangulate and make sure that we're not missing anything. But the majority of the information that you'll find on the Career Explorer page comes from Stepping Blocks. So the Career Explorer focuses on this idea that we had about earning a future flexible degree. I would love it if every single one of my students were to sort of kind of waltz into my classroom with a well-worn copy of Wuthering Heights under their arm, just so excited to be an English major. And you know, it would be just a Goodwill Hunting exercise every day. I would stand on the tabletops and talk about poetry all day long. And if you are having that experience with your students, I'm very jealous. But those are not the students that I have coming to my English classes. So one of the things we want to impress on our students is that an undergraduate degree is a generalist degree. You can do anything with an undergraduate degree with some limitations, right? If you want to be an accountant, then obviously you need to go into accountancy. If you want to be a nurse, then you need to get into the nursing program. But for the most part, most jobs out there on the job, you know, in the job market are looking for skills. And those skills are transferable across all majors. And we're just not doing a good job of showing students that that degree in political science and that degree in history and that degree in women's and gender study have the same skills. We're learning the same exact things, and we're going to be able to show you how you can apply them across many industries. And so we came up with this idea of creating a future flexible degree space. Get your degree and then figure out how to translate those skills, figure out how to talk about how those skills relate to a myriad of industries. Each of these majors, or each major at Georgia State University, is mapped in the Career Explorer. And we worked with every single department to make sure that these pages were reflective and felt comfortable to them. This did take a long time. I don't want to make it sound as though we thought of this idea and then 2 months later we had the Career Explorer. That absolutely is not the case. We also had to make some good, some decisions about what the data was going to say for us. So for instance, if you are a undergraduate who graduates from our Robinson College of Business, your first job, you are definitely making a lot more money, first job out, than someone from our arts and humanities area. And that really was unfortunate in the way that we could tell the story, right? Come get an English degree, come get a history degree, come get an urban policy degree. You're gonna make a living, a decent living. You'll be able to support yourself. But when they would look over at the business degrees and some of the STEM degrees and things like that, they would say, yeah, but these degrees are allowing me to get a job out of college making $20,000, $30,000 more than the degrees from the arts and humanities or even in the College of the Fine Arts. But what our research showed us is if we expanded our degree pool out 10 years. So if we looked at what that same person from the business department was making 10 years out and what a person from the history department was making 10 years out, guess what? The gap was much closer, much narrower. And so we decided what we were going to do was we were going to pool the data from 5 to 10 years. We wanted to give everybody an understanding that while some of these degrees you don't come out of the gate making all this money, you do in the end catch up with your peers who are getting degrees from these other majors. Now, when we talk about faculty, how did those discussions go over with the faculty? Not well. I will be completely honest. When they were able to see that the data that we had triangulated with the Georgia Department of Labor, as well as with stepping blocks, showed that 10 years out, someone with a degree in business was making almost exactly the same as someone with a degree in English. We did not have a good reception, let's say. And we had to talk through that. And we had to talk through why it was important. We had to talk through, why it was a matter of serving our students rather than a matter of serving our majors and our own departments. Since we've launched this, the business department has not lost any majors. It's not like people are like, oh my gosh, I always wanted to be an English major, but I just decided to go do actuarial science instead. They're getting just as many majors as they always have. But what is happening is that students are feeling more confident to choose majors that are majors of the heart or majors of their interests or majors that they're curious in, knowing that 10 years out they will be able to find jobs or to retain jobs that pay them well. Each of these Career Explorer pages, for this is an example of the history major, contains some wow facts. And these wow facts cycle so that they can just sort of kind of see, ooh, this is some interesting national data about history majors specifically. And then we worked with each major to give us a paragraph to put underneath this heading. So all of the Career Explorer pages look identical. The major was allowed to choose the banner photo, which is behind the text here. And then they gave us a paragraph of information. And then they gave us their department's homepage so that we could link it there. The next section on these Career Explorer pages are about major stories. We gave the departments a very big latitude. You tell us what you want here. What we think would be great is to hear from some students. We'd love to hear from some faculty about how this degree prepares you for career. And so that's what they did. They took videos of their students talking about what a typical class looks like and how those skills development in those classes work towards getting a good internship or finding a job on campus. And then they also submitted some faculty spotlight. We allowed them to either do video faculty spotlight, or we had some shy faculty who were like, you know what, I'd love to just, give you a paragraph and an image. And so we worked with them to produce pages that really reflected what they were most comfortable with. Each page contains a Your Degree at Work section that highlights the top 5 industries hiring GSU graduates with that degree. So these are GSU graduates. These are our graduates for this particular degree. And this is an English major, right? And so in our 5 top categories, we have education as one of them, we have media as another, and healthcare. Who knew? I'm always surprised. Every time we go to update this data, refresh the embed codes, I am surprised at what is popping up as a leading industry for a given major. So healthcare is on here, legal and nonprofit work. Now, when a student goes to a faculty member and says, hey, I would really like to know, with this degree, what can I do? This platform allows both faculty and students to sit down and sort of kind of look over this data. I can tell you not one person in the English faculty ever had healthcare on their list of things that their majors could do going out into the job market. We also include here not only the industry, but the average salary. And again, that average salary is an average salary 5 to 10 years out, not immediately, not that first year out. And then the average year of experience there. The other thing we included, which I think is essential for students, is a section about common job titles: editor, producer, account manager, reporter, writer. They don't know to look for those titles, those job titles. What they see is media. And they say, oh, I don't have a media degree. I don't come from creative media industries. At Georgia State, we have a creative media industry major. I don't come from that major. So all of these jobs listed under media in the industry of media are not for me. But if we can start showing them what the job titles are, editor, of course you can be an editor if you're an English major. I would say that most people who are editors, not just script editing, but even just digital editing, have a strong writing background. And so putting these common titles here, it's really important, especially for faculty to be able to start talking about, hey, if this interests you, if media interests you, then let's go back through and see what things you have that help you highlight those skills on your resume. We also include a future flexible section to let people know, for instance, political organizer. Most political organizers would be thought to come out of political science and not out of English. But here, what we have is a graph that represents that there are, a portion of these political organizers that do come out of English. And so encouraging our students to think in a future flexible mode, not to think just that comes out of political science. I didn't get a political science major, so these types of jobs are not for me. We also include a section that talks about English majors have skills. It all says the same. So it'll say business majors have skills, or women's and gender studies majors have skills. And then we list all of the NACE competencies underneath that. When students choose one of those NACE competencies, a pop-up comes up and it shows them the courses related to that competency. So this is career and self-development. So the courses that they can take to beef up that part of their academic training, opportunities in the majors, and then associated skills. This is all provided, by the way, by each major. So we gave them a template, like this big spreadsheet, and we said, okay, here is the competency. We want you to list the courses that connect to that competency. We want you to list opportunities in the majors. So, internships, study abroads, even just, lecture series, things like that. And then any associated skills that are unique to your major that help with this development, this career development. And then the pages also highlight recent graduates. One of the things that we found is that when you go to our alumni center, they do have a lot of alumni and active alumni, but they tend to be a little bit older. And for us, they tended to be a little bit whiter. So they were male, white, and older. And so there weren't a lot of representation of students who could look at a recent graduate and say, oh, that person looks like me. That person has a similar story to me. That person is I could imagine doing what that person is doing because that person represents who I am. The caveat that we have here, obviously, is that we want these people who are represented here to be available to meet our students on LinkedIn to build their networks. So if you go back to those modules where we had a LinkedIn assignment, one of the assignments was building a relevant network. And we asked students to choose an area and industry that they're interested in, and then build a network of at least 5, starting off at least 5 people in LinkedIn who are connected to that network, so that they could see what it is that they're doing and be part of that conversation in that industry. So I told you that we had this platform, and the platform was Portfolium, and this is how we allowed our students to demonstrate the skills that they had earned. It didn't go over as well as we wanted it to. Plus, what we have found is that anytime we ask students, okay, you are here, but when you want to post something, we want you to log into this thing over here. And when we want you to find a job, we want you to log into this thing over here. We were sending them in many different directions. And so we had the idea that what if, instead of having them collect all of this, that we could do it for them. And so what we did was we built in our LMS what we call the skills briefcase. And the skills briefcase permits an easy connection between the work students do in class and the skills that they need when they go out on the job market. And it becomes a portfolio of work that students can share with prospective employers. So that's the briefcase part of it. We started with this simple graph. This was one of our first jobs as a QEP leader, was to bring representatives from across the university to sit down and say, okay, here are our competencies. What are the skills under each of those competencies that we can actually teach? It's difficult to tell students that they are learning digital technology. What does that mean? I don't know what digital technology is. But the skills that they're learning is to design creative digital solutions or to translate data. That is a skill. And those tend to be the things that they're going to see on job postings. Those tend to be the things that employers use, the words that employers use when they're talking about skills. And so what we wanted to do is to be sure that we had a representative list of skills underneath each of these competencies that could be applied across all of our majors. So there isn't one major that has a lock on any one of these competencies. Every single major can do these skills in some way, shape, or form. When we go to the skills briefcase, what we were able to do is make sure that our competencies were automatically added to all of our core classes. So if you are a faculty member who teaches a core class, so English 1101, English 1102, math, history, political science, those types of courses, then these competencies are automatically added. What does that mean? Well, when you add an assignment in our LMS for students to complete, a pop-up box comes to ask you what skills should be associated with that assignment. And so then the faculty will associate the competencies and skills with the assignment. And when the student opens the assignment, they are made aware that in completing the assignment, they are practicing the competencies and practicing the associated skills. When this assignment is submitted, the faculty use a simple assessment rubric to determine how well the student has done on the skills acquisition side. And that is, when I say simple, it's very simple. They have not met expectations, they have met expectations, or they have exceeded expectations. The competency assessments do not factor into the academic grade for the assignment. And I know that's kind of hard to sort of well, wait a minute, they completed an assignment. How could them not meeting expectations in one area make it so that they don't get a worse grade on it? We separate those two things. Someone can turn in a fabulous research paper, an unbelievably well-researched, resourced paper. But one component of that was that they share and peer mentor that paper in order to provide the mentorship under professionalization. They did not participate in a mentorship component of that assignment, and so they did not meet expectations. But it doesn't change the fact that they turned in a very well-written and researched paper. So students know that what they do on this is not something that is going to hamper their grade, and faculty know that they can give them a good assessment on skills development without having to consider how that skills development impacts what they are teaching and what they are expert in. The reporting features allow faculty to demonstrate their participation in student success and USG initiatives. So in Georgia, every faculty member has to show what they are doing in order to fulfill student success initiatives on our campus. And they can simply pull a report and say, look at how many assignments I have created and connected these skills to. And it empowers students to more easily track their own skills development over time. And so this is just sort of kind of what it looks like on the back end. It's a final paper. They know that they are going to connect these skills to it. It will move. There's more under here. But the faculty member will just say, okay, this is a critical thinking, or it's a persuasion or intercultural competence skill, and they attach that to it. When the final paper comes to be graded, then they go over to the competencies section here, and they use the simple rubric to say that it meets expectations for critical thinking, or it's below expectations for intercultural competence. On the faculty or the student view, what they see is they see that they have edit and published material for this particular assignment, and that they exceeded expectations there, and they met expectations for meeting the deadline. The faculty dashboard is going to allow them to see by student where the student is collecting those competencies. But in addition to that, they're able to see by semester. So say fall 2023, how many students did I have in this class that was meeting expectations? Let me drill down on a particular assignment. How many students were meeting expectations versus exceeding expectations? This is a component that allows our faculty to adjust. We're hoping that if faculty have a assignment that has more than half of their students falling below expectations on skills acquisition, then they'll be curious enough to try and figure out why. What do I need to do with this assignment? How do I rework this assignment so that more of my students can meet or exceed expectations on it? This is just another screen of that. And then the student dashboard allows them to track the same way. So they can filter by term, they can filter by level achieved, and they can filter by a grouping mechanism. And so it will tell them under critical thinking, right now, they're exceeding expectations. Aggregately, they're exceeding expectations. If they click on critical thinking, it's going to show them all the different assignments that they have earned for that. And I see Jana popping on, so I'm going to pause for just a minute.
Well, I think we are out of our time, and I want to thank you so much. This has been wonderful. We'll follow up with you. You've got faculty comply, you've got uniformity among departments. It's amazing, Angela. So thank you so very much for all that you've done and what you've shared with us. And I think that we might have 30 seconds, but not very long, just long enough to say thanks.
Sure.
And it's amazing what you've done. And we'll call on you to help us go further with the Kentucky Graduate Profile to close that gap between what employers are looking for and what we're being able to provide.
Absolutely. And feel free if anyone's interested in the slide deck or asking me any questions, you can always email me. I'm happy to have further discussions about the work we're doing at Georgia State.
And I'm sure we will be digging into that and we'll be asking plenty of questions. So thank you for your offer there. We really appreciate it.
No
And
problem.
thanks to everyone who has watched, and we hope you will dig into the slide deck and go further. Thank you so much.